Thank you all for coming, and I'd like to say about Pamela Dawes Tambornino that she is my dear colleague at Haskell, and I had known her, 10 years as director of the library at Haskell, and then she really loved teaching, and she shifted over into teaching in the English department. She has an MLS from Emporia State, almost a master's from Emporia State in English also, and a degree from Washburn. She went to high school in Salina and is enrolled Cherokee, and then also has a grandpa who's Osage. She was starting to tell me stories about her grandmother, and I said, Pam, why don't you write some of these down? And she started writing them down, and you will hear from her how extraordinary her experience and precious her years growing up with her grandmother were. Pamela Tambornino.
Osio, that's hello in Cherokee. I'm Tussalaki Iwaya, and that means I'm Cherokee from the Wolf Clan. I started learning from my grandmother when I was about 6, and I had my foot in that world. I had my foot in the regular world. I went to public school, and then I would come and visit my grandmother, and she would teach me the traditional way to live. So I learned about the 4 directions, and I learned about the cycles of life. I learned about the different things to cure and to help people. We delivered babies, we delivered calves. We treated all kinds of ailments from snake bites to rashes during the times I was with her. She was a little 4'2". She says 4'2.5", but I think she lies. She's a 4'2" person, and just a tiny little person. She's tiny. And I always said to her, Grandma, you're just so tiny. How do you get away with so much? I'm not tiny. What do you mean tiny? And I said, so you don't think you're tiny? And she goes, no, granddaughter. You act as you give. I am what I am. I'm not tiny. I can do what I want. And I thought, okay, so I can turn out tiny. I'm going to remember that speech so I can know that later on. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She was born to a mother that had 8 children, and she didn't have a lot of schooling. She was pulled out in 8th grade to work on the farm and for the children. And I'll tell you my first memories. This is the first chapter in the book. All these are very short stories. It's called Tussalaki Lasmina, and it's my Cherokee grandmother. My first memories of my grandmother, of her jet black hair, her huge smile, her dark eyes. She was full of contradictions. She laughed a lot, she worked hard, she played hard, and had a definite idea of what family used to be like. And she had an opinion that was always right. She also had a temper and was not afraid to use it when wronged. Everyone that knew her knew to run when she kind of got low and softer in her voice when she'd say, never. Well, this was a strong signal that things were going to start flying around the room. My father always used to say she never knew she was so small and vulnerable looking. She felt and acted like the strong woman that she was. And she was. She was protected of me, the first child, the first grandchild, the first granddaughter, and taught me the healing ways and started me down the road of traditional learning and the ways of the Cherokee people, the people of the nation. I remember the first time my grandmother took me hunting for herbs and medicines in the woods. I was about, 2 feet high, dragging a bag behind with a little short stick. And she would say, granddaughter, in Cherokee, this is the way we learn to do in our tribe. So there we went. I was a little girl of 6, dragging a basket, spade, and woven bag, following her, little 4-foot, 100-pound lady, down into the woods. As we walked in the woods, she always told me stories where we were teaching me the healing ways. One day she would say, we are from the Wolf Clan. We are the strong people. Never, ever, ever say anything to disrespect our family name. Then she would say, dig here. That root is good for stopping in childbirth. I would start digging in the hard red clay of Haskell, Oklahoma. And I learned much from our language from my grandmother and from her mother. And I'm now relearning part of that language that I've lost in the times that I've not written this book. She would teach me how to bring plants down for fevers. She would use dogwood, help upset stomachs, that's pepperwood, tickweed, terrapin's foot. Arthritis, fever foot, liver ailments, ash tree, and a variety of other ailments. Her kitchen was forever littered and hanging plants, bags, various barks, things hanging here, things hanging there, jars here, jars there. It smelled spicy, woodsy, really wonderful. Often as she boiled a remedy, I'd be asked to bring this plant or that plant to her, and she would indicate to me how the remedy would be applied and how it worked. She also made sure that each year I was dosed with the correct remedy that would correct my blood, my liver, purify my brain. Most of these she had to chase me down for, because not all those cures were very good. The one that strengthened blood, for instance, came from bloodwood, and that's really bad. And she had to chase me several times for that one. She also taught me the traditional ways of the Cherokee, among them the stories, the trickster, the little people, the creation story. I remember aptly sitting at her feet, listening to her strong voice flow over me, and the images of the characters, the coyote, the rabbit, the turtle, grandmother spider. And I would see these things in my head, the stories to life as I saw them, as so many others had seen them before me. And if I think back, I can feel again the soft summer's wind in my hair and smell the barks and plants on her hands as she gestured. It was a magical time, and it flowed swiftly, as years passed swiftly now into my old age. I can still see her home, an old homestead painted all white, that she stood in line to bid for 12 hours when she had 4 small children. In my mind's eye, I see the large leafy trees, the huge anthill at the top, the gravel driveway, the front porch that my father made, and also hanging swing that he made in high school. That swing still hangs there today. I actually went last year. Many hours were spent on that porch with my family late into the night from talking and remembering. And some of the fondest memories I have growing up were made in that house. First time I did a fish fry until midnight. The first time that I fished for 14 hours with people I didn't even know. First time I ran a combine and clogged up the fan in 5 minutes. First time I picked wheat. First time I learned to really, really listen. And of course, the thing I learned the most was love of family comes first. And a brief passage from her wild and woolier side. She always would never turn down a challenge. That was one thing with my grandmother. You never knew what you were going to get stuck into when you were with her. She would never, ever turn down a challenge. Didn't matter what it was. If she thought it was worthwhile and you could learn something from it, that's what we did. So one day I was with her in Haskell, and the main street's called Cayuga Street, runs north and south. And it's only about 6 blocks long. And of course, the police station is right in the middle of the block. Well, we were in our car and we just picked a whole bunch of choke cherries. Choke cherries are little round balls and they're real squishy and they make really good jelly. So we had like 4 cartons of the choke cherries in the back of her Cadillac pickup. She just had to have, I don't know how she thought she had to have that, but she did. And it was a V8. She had to have a V8. So we're on there on Sunday and we're sitting, parked in the car, and lights turn right, red, and we're sitting, just talking. We're at the Triangle building. And a young man pulls up in what now would be called a muscle car. To me, that didn't mean much. I found out later that's like a 76 Mustang. Well, he revved the engine and shouted out and shouted. Grandma says, "What, young man, are you saying?" And he said, I can beat you in that car. I thought, Lord have mercy. We're going to have a drag race right here on Cayuga Street, and we did. There was one thing my grandmother couldn't do, is she could not pass up a challenge. And so with that, she put her foot on the left brake, and she commenced revving her car with the other foot, and here we're going. The car started hopping forward a little bit at a time. There was a lot of noise. There was a lot of praying from my part. And she said sweetly, don't worry, I can get you out of jail. I have enough money. I got this. Okay, the lights changed down and it changed to green, and there we went, that Mustang going with her foot right to the floor, just gunning that baby. Now, both cars were growling down Cayuga Street, and we passed that police station so fast, I never even saw it. It went by so fast. Now, you got to remember, my grandmother was only 4'2". So in order for her to sit in that Cadillac car, she had to sit on the Tulsa Times to a telephone book so that she could, you know, reach up to see and still hit the pedal of the accelerator. Well, anyway, the young man could see that he wasn't going to make the race, and he threw on his brakes, and in order to miss him, she threw on the brake. Telephone Times slid off the seat with her sliding right off with it, and I'm going, Lord's going to take me home today. That's what's going to happen. Anyway, we get stopped, and I think, we're stopped. And I looked down, and she must have popped her hand right on the brake when she hit the floor, because the car had done like a wheelie and just spun around. She jumped out, and that young man didn't have a chance. He kept going in that Mustang, and there she was, a little 4'2" person, about 100 pounds, chasing him down Cayuga Street Sunday afternoon. Well, instead of going, when the light turned, you know, amber, and just popping it forward, that poor man stopped. That poor man stopped. She calmly reached in and took him by the ear and told him the positive attitude he should have toward his elders. And what about her choke cherries? They're all over the place. Well, I thought, I made it out of this one, but I don't know what's going to happen next. Well, the next day we made it home, but of course our choke cherries were gone. They were all smashed on the windshield, a little gobby mess. And all of a sudden there was a knock at the door, and there were 4 crates of choke cherries. Little note. I said, Grandma, where'd the choke cherries from? Well, she said, I just called his dad. You know, I helped him, you know, get the air blown out of his cows when he let him eat too much when his dad was gone. And I just kind of reminded him that maybe his dad would like to know he wasn't taking care of those cows, you know, when he was gone, and he should know how they got the bloat off. And he offered to give me these choke cherries. And he says, I think I'll learn by default, don't you? And that's some of her stories that she did.